Namaste to everyone who is attending this talk. Today is a Mother's Day. All of us have to remember fondly our mothers. Mother is the source of energy for anything and everything that we do in this world. Whether they are living today or not, still their inspiration is always with us. And being a Mother's Day, we should also remember the great mother, that is Bhudevi, that is the earth mother. So we should do all our level best to protect our earth and be respectful to our Bhudevi. With this, let me get into the topic, which is Upasana Yoga. Normally, Upasana is known as meditation. So I will be using the term meditation in today's talk so that we are quite comfortable on that. If you take the meditation, it is being adopted by almost all faith. Even Christianity or Buddhism or Jainism or Sanatana Dharma or yogis like Raja Yoga, everywhere the meditation is a part of this sadhana. So, today we cannot cover all the types of meditation as taught by various kind of faiths. So today I am going to concentrate only the approach that has been adopted by Vedantic approach as well as the Patanjali approach. Both the Patanjali and the Vedantic approach are more or less same and similar only. Now let us get back to Gita, Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita has got 18 chapters. Each 6th chapter is called one Shatkam. So there are 3 Shatkams are there. Each Shatkam is classified for a particular topic, highlighting a particular topic. The first Shatkam is concentrating on Karma Yoga. Second Shatkam is concentrating on Upasana Yoga. And the third Shatkam on Jnana Yoga. The beauty is, as far as Bhakti Yoga is concerned, in almost all the 18 chapters, somewhere or other it is being touched. That shows very clearly Bhakti is the base that we require in order to understand Gita or to become spiritual. Without Bhakti, the spirituality cannot come within our mind. Second, you might have noticed, karma we know that is activity, upasana we know that is a meditation, jnana is having the knowledge about conscious principle or atma. But why they add this word called yoga? Yoga, the meaning is that joining with something. Here, if you see either karma or upasana, the meditation, or the knowledge about our conscious principle or a higher principle, all are directed towards or to join ultimately a noble principle. If you take mere bhakti, it is only an emotion. You can be very, very much emotionally attached to your own family, or you may be attached to your own boss, and that also a bhakti. But when the bhakti is attached to the noble principle of God, then that becomes bhakti yoga. Similarly, any activity that we do for the sake of God, then it becomes karma yoga. Same thing with the meditation and the same thing with the knowledge also, jnana. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, there is one sloka, I think the 6th chapter, it is 10th sloka, I remember, yeah. So, there's a very beautiful sloka which attracted me. The sloka goes like this, Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam ragasastitaha ekaki yatachittatma nirasura parigraha. See, the meaning of this sloka is remaining alone in solitude with a restrained mind and body, without any desire and without any possession, A yogi should constantly engage in meditation. Why this particular sloka was very attractive to me? Because in this one single sloka, what are all the requirements for a upasana or a meditation? What is the condition in which a yogi is there in the upasana? All these things have been explained in one single sloka. If you carefully see this sloka, there are some requirements that have been told in this sloka. What are they? You have to be alone. You should have a disciplined mind. You should be desireless, egoless, or the mind has to be properly controlled. So these are all required in order to be successful in upasana or meditation. If you see all these requirements, they are all connected with one single thing called mind. So, before attempting to meditation, it becomes necessary for us to turn the mind to a congenial position so that the meditation or upasana will be able to do that. Most of the people, they feel sometimes frustrated that meditation is not coming. It's mainly because the meditation cannot happen unless the mind is properly termed. Now let us see, suppose the mind is not termed and then it is left on its own. Generally what happens? You will find there are a lot of random thoughts with no control whatsoever. Sometimes we want to think, but apart from that, there are many thoughts which we don't even expect. There are many thoughts which may not be relevant to the present situation. Even then, there are a lot of thoughts will come. Even when you are listening to my talk, there will be very much more thoughts will be coming to you, so that will draw your attention from this listening to the talk itself. That is why Arjuna is asking Krishna, the mind is like a wind. It goes anywhere it likes. How do I control? That particular question he is asking to Krishna himself. Second thing what is happening, fear, desire, and sometimes uncontrollable emotions. These are all happening. Once fear is totally occupying you, or a desire is totally occupying you, or other emotions like kama, krodha, lopa, moha, etc., when they are occupying your mind, your intellect doesn't work at all. Buddhi nasham, that is the term used by Lord Krishna. The buddhi gets completely demolished. You do not know. Sometimes a human being does not behave like a human being. He becomes an animal. So, this is second problem. Third is, even though your intelligence is working sharply, you may be a very intelligent person, that intelligence should have acquired a good habits. Otherwise, any kind of a bad habits that have been accumulated, your intelligence will help you to get into that bad temptations and adharmic activities more and more. That is how these professional killers, gamblers, the criminals, they are all coming because they are intelligent. In fact, they are challenging entire police force. But their intelligence, where it has gone? Into a wrong path. The next is, without your consciousness, you will be going on building up your ego. This is my property. I have done this. I have worked hard for bringing up this company. I know that people are giving me respect because I am successful. These are all indirectly go on building up our ego. So what the problem with the ego is, it will not allow you to accept the realities of life. Whatever is happening in and around you, it should be exactly suiting to your requirement. Otherwise, the ego will start fighting back. That is how we have got most of the samsaric problems. Why this should happen to me? Why should I suffer? When that person is less intelligent than me, when he is happy, why not me? All this comparison, all this dukkham, It is coming because of very, very indirectly you have built up a ego. When these kind of drawbacks are there in the mind, how can you sit calmly for meditation? Meditation is not just doing anything at all. Meditation is a condition, the condition of the mind. So, when your condition of the mind is with so much of disturbance, what kind of a meditation we can do? You can think yourself. Now, Gita has told certain conditions like desirelessness, seclusiveness, detachment. These are the sloka which is just now I read. These are all the conditions it is given by Lord Krishna. How do we bring these conditions? The mental condition and the vital energy distributions are intrinsically dependent. This is one kind of a principle behind meditation. Pranic energy or vital energy in our system, it is created by both the air, the oxygen that you are taking in, and also the food you are taking in. This vital energy has to pass through three important nadis. You might have seen in the yoga, it is called Ida, Pingala and Sushumna Nadi. For most of the people, the Sushumna Nadi is not activated to the extent, whereas Ida Pingala is activated to some extent. In case, suppose you know the technique of managing this vital energy to properly flow in this Ida, Pingala, Nadis and all, then the mind will become calm. So, our rishis have found two methods. One method is make the mind calm, so that when the mind is calm, your pranic energy, your vital energy will flow properly through the nadis. There is another method which is called yogic method, is manage the vital energy properly so that your mind becomes calm. Both the techniques are being followed. The first attempting to make the mind calm is the method followed by Vedanta as well as Patanjali. Whereas managing the vital energy to go properly so that your mind becomes a bliss, that is being done by the advanced yogis called Raja Yoga, otherwise called also Kundalini Yoga. Today I am not going to touch upon either Raja Yoga or Kundalini Yoga because it is not in the scope of my talk today. That is a separate subject which has to be learned from experts. Today I am going to touch upon the Vedantic meditation, Vedantic Upasana Yoga and the Patanjali Yoga. If you take Vedantic Yoga as well as Patanjali meditation, if you take it, both are more or less similar, almost 95%. They are similar, except in the last stage, which we will see in the course of the talk. Now, Vedantic meditation as well as Patanjali meditation, they are first recommending that you term your mind. There are some people who are very rajasic, that is busy and then getting involved in whether wanted or not wanted. And there are people who are always having a lot of worries. There are many things which I have just now indicated. Mind, what are all the ways it is going. In order to bring the mind to a calm, sattvic type, both Vedantic approach as well as Patanjali approach gives certain sadhanas. Vedantic approach gives sadhanas are Viveka, Vairagya, Shatka Sampatti and Mumukshutvam. I am not going to elaborate this because we do not have time, but quickly I will just give a brushing on these things. Viveka means Nitya Anitya Viveka. That is what are all permanent, what are all impermanent, what are all really there in the world, which are all false way, they are all there. That at least that much you should be able to recognize with your intelligence. Vairagya is the one where you should not have extreme raga and dvesha, hatred and then too much liking, the attachment. These are all the things which brings you a lot of misery. Then Shatka Sampatti is a sixfold discipline. That is all Sama, Dama, Uparama, Titiksha and go on. What are they? This is just making your mind to turn inward. And then you should have indriya control, unnecessary temptations you should avoid. And you should be more or less developing a mental equanimity. And finally, mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam is what? To come out of all kinds of bondages. But the problem is, when we do not know which are all bondages itself, then how are we going to come out? So, in day-to-day life, we should clearly understand which are all the bondages. Then only we can come out. If you take the Patanjali sadhana, this is the same thing in a different terms of words, that's all. Yama, Niyama. Yama is what? Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya and Aparigraha. Most of you might have heard it. This is a discipline, and Niyama is Saucha, Santosha, Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. This is another way of approach. Both of them, if you complete these sadhanas, your mind will become sattvic mind. So the calm sattvic mind is first of all essential for spiritual upasana. That is very important. Without this, most of the times what happens is people skip these disciplines and directly teach the meditation. That is why most of the people are not able to continue the meditation. They are quite enthusiastic in the camps and then they try to close their eyes and then sit erect. All these things are there. But after some time they leave it because the mind is not allowing them to sit like that. So this is very important to understand. Now let us understand what is upasana. Upasana is what? People always use a misnomer, that is, I want to do meditation. It is not a karma. There is nothing to do in meditation. It is a condition, meditative stage. You have to bring yourself. So, the upasana should be clearly understood that it is a stage. Meditation is a particular condition in which the whole mind is occupied either in one single aspect or one single object. That means your mind should have a total focus on either one object or one kind of a topic or one aspect. This way, the mind, when it is developing focus, it is enormous strength for us. From multivarious thoughts, from varied, diversified mind, we are trying to bring the mind into a focus means that's a great achievement. Why should we do that? Why should we have focus in the mind? If you see, there are various stages of upasana is there. That is where the focus is being utilized. Once you establish the concentration and then focus, and the mind has been prevented from varying here and there or with the random thoughts and all, then this focus will be well utilized. In what way? First stage, value addition. For example, in our mind there are many bad habits that have been engraved, impressed, not only in this janma but also from previous millions of janmas. That they were all bad habits that are engraved. That is what is called in Vedanta as durvasanas, that is bad vasanas. So, our character varies from people to people. Why? The character varies because that is the kind of a vasanas very strongly inbuilt in the mind. So, how do I improve my personality? How do you improve my character? There is no point of regretting or condemning yourself or feeling bad about yourself. They are not the solutions. This kind of a negative thinking will only make you still worse. The best way is replace all these bad vasanas into a good vasana. How? Put a lot of good thoughts, positive thoughts into the mind. If you want to put that kind of thoughts and then make an impression in the mind, that is where the upasana is helpful. How? Because you have got concentration, you have developed concentration, you have developed a focus, and upasana is what? Just focusing on one subject or one concept. So to start with, for example, somebody is going on lying for even a small thing. he suddenly feels, I don't want to lie from tomorrow onwards. So, how to speak the truth? On that, start doing the meditation. If you daily do the meditation, how you have to be truthful, you will start understanding within your mind what are all the problems you have got in adopting this method of becoming a truthful person. That way you will start correcting yourself. Auto-suggestion. This is what the modern term says. Go on reinforcing in one thought, it will become a habit, then your character will change. So Upasana is being used in this. Then, same way, whatever the sadhanas that have been suggested by Patanjali as well as Vedanta, those sadhanas, one, you take it, focus on that, and then try to put it in your mind, make your mind acceptable, then your whole personality, from a Rajasic personality or a Tamasic personality, it will become Sattvic personality. Once you become very calm, mentally equanimous, then only your spiritual meditation can start. Imagine somebody is not interested spiritually, but he has become only Sattvic, and then he is having a sharp focus, sharp intellect. That will be very useful in the material world. You can transact with the people very beautifully. You can transact in the office very nicely. You will be able to understand why people are all behaving, why situation is like this. Then you should be able to take all challenges in a perspective way. All these things will be there. That itself is a great advantage. But once your mind become calm and then start understanding the transaction in this world, what will happen? Automatically your mind will aspire for spiritual progress. Once you are not having a common mind, and whatever amount of scriptures or whatever the amount of lectures you listen, the mind will not accept it. That is why calm mind is very important. Then once you get the calm mind, the Patanjali says pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, all these things they recommend. What is pratyahara? Looking inward. What is dharana? Take one object or one kind of a concept and totally put your mind on that. That is called dharana. When you are able to do the dharana, automatically that concept or that object will occupy your total mind. The total mind it will occupy. That becomes a dhyana. Once you are doing a dhyana, at that time you are having a little feeling that you are doing the dhyana. But after some time you will find even that conscious of you are doing the dhyana will disappear, and it is called samadhi. I told you that Patanjali and Vedanta both are more or less similar, except in the last stage. Here the Patanjali stops only with the samadhi. That means your mind is not at all having any kind of a thought, and your mind is not functioning at all. So you are totally submerged into one concept or one object. For example, you are meditating upon Shiva, you will become almost Shiva. Same. But again, when you are waking up, again you will think that you are the body, you are the mind, thinking that you are an ordinary human being. That is why there is a slight difference in Vedanta. Vedanta, what it says is, it is not just sufficient to be in samadhi alone. When your mind is not functioning, the mind is totally peaceful and it is not having any kind of a thought. Put a thought that you are conscious principle, that you are Atma, and you are nothing but Atma, and you are not the body, you are not the mind. That concept, you go on putting it. Reinforcing that concept is called Nididhyasana. The difference between Upasana and Nididhyasana is, Nididhyasana is the one where you put this conscious principle constantly into the mind, so that your mind is totally accepting that you are a conscious principle but not the body or mind. That will come. Now, the meditation process, you might have been very familiar because all of you might have attended many courses in meditation. Best time will be Brahma Muhurta. that is very early morning before the dawn, or the sandhis, either just before the sunrise or just before the sunset, because these are the time where the worldly activities are very minimum. So your mind will not get vibration from outside. Your mind itself will be very calm. So even if you are working in the office, when the sunset is there, automatically you feel like getting out of the office. The same way, even though you are a very ardent sleeper, somehow when the sun is rising, you got slight disturbance, time to get up. But because of our various kinds of unwanted activities, we are not able to get up when the sun is rising. Place, if you take it, the place has to be clean, place has to be calm, and preferably you select the same place for meditation. Then the posture, they normally insist for a very comfortable posture, and it should be sthiram, that is foam posture, and preferably your vertebra has to be straight. Especially when you are doing this Kundalini Yoga and all, the position of vertebra is very, very important. Then comes benefits because of meditation is concentration and memory when they are increasing, efficient transactions you can do, calmness and balanced approach when it is coming. You can accept the challenges, any kind of a challenges, and be smiling and calm. Applying or withdrawing your focus as you will. It's a great boon because you can avoid any kind of temptations. Many a times you get a conflict in the early morning itself whether to do or not to do. That kind of a thing when it is coming, if you apply your willpower, you can take a correct decision. For most of the people, decision making is the biggest problem. Then better character and a better personality fetches you lot of respect. Respect cannot be demanded. It should be automatically given by the people. Then strengthening of willpower. That is very important in order to take charge of the life. Everybody thinks life is like that. Life is not like that. You have made your life. You and a life are not different. It's one and the same. Obstacles, if you take it, is very obvious. Laziness, then diversion of attention, various kinds of bad habits already built up in the mind, and finally physical limitation. Somebody may be having fever, or they may not be able to sit properly, or there are some people might have been in the terminal stages. Many things are there. So it's a physical limitation. In order to conclude this talk, I have given certain points as a conclusion. Calm mind and flow of vital energy, these are the two things being utilized to complement each other and to get a meditative stage. Next, either determining the mind to be calm or managing the vital energy give the same result only. Patanjali and a Vedantic approach is to term the mind. Upasana is employed to develop personality with a calm mind and further progress in spiritual upliftment. Personality change will bring success in worldly transaction and calm the mind for spiritual aspiration also. Thank you very much. Namaste. Yeah. See, basically, there are two things that being employed. One is called Mano Nasam, another is called Mano Layam. Mano Layam is what? Transcending the mind. Mano Nasam is mind is not functioning at all. These two are being attempted in any meditation. You take any Buddhist meditation, Jainism, everywhere. These are the basic two things that are being attempted. Only thing is, as you know, if you take yoga principle, the Raja Yoga, what they do is they activate the Sushumna Nadi by utilizing the extra energy available, that is called Ojas, available in the body to rise through various chakras. You know that all the 7 chakras, through that it rises and then you get a bliss thing. When this Kundalini Shakti is rising in the Sushumna Nadi, what happens is your mind becomes more and more and more and more and calm. Finally, a stage comes, the mind is not functioning at all. Mano Nasam takes place. If you take Vedantic meditation, by virtue of utilizing your intellect to get convinced that there is no point in having attachment, there is no point in having a desire, there is no point in having bondage, these kind of by intellectually arguing with you, they make the mind to accept the calmness. Initially, by calmness, the mind, what happens is the Manolayam is possible. That is, it is able to have only one single kind of a focus for a very long time. Once the one kind, for example, why this, especially if you see the Vedic meditation recommends you take a personal God and then you meditate upon that. Or they say you envisage a lamp and then as if the lamp is glowing in your right side of your heart and then imagine on that and then focus on that. What is happening? It is one single object finally will disappear. So when the single object is occupied, the entire mind, that is called Manolayam. Moment that single object also disappears, that becomes Mano Nasam. Moment the Mano Nasam takes place, the mindfulness automatically comes. So even though they are giving different names and all, the approach is only on two principles. First, try to bring Manolayam. Then later, automatically Mano Nasam will take place. Once the mind is completely stopped, remaining is what? Remaining is only the consciousness, conscious principle, Turiya. That is what is available to you. Yeah, for his spiritual aspiration, I will answer your question definitely, Sanjay. But before that, this spiritual aspiration, why people are all after that so vehemently, as if they are very good in other things, First, let us say, in our own office, for example, if any kind of an assignment is given, we are not able to do it equally. All people are not doing that same assignment equally. Some people do it so extraordinarily efficient, and some people they fail even to understand that. Why this kind of a discrepancy is happening when all human beings are having the same type of brain? That means first initially we have to at least develop the focus. I'll give a small example. Ramana Maharishi's example I'll give. It seems he used to cook in the ashram. When he is cutting the vegetable, between one piece of the vegetable and the other piece of the vegetable, you can measure with the scale and it will be of the same size. That means what kind of a focus, what kind of a concentration he has got. See, first of all, we should learn. See, the multitask is a very bad kind of an approach, honestly speaking. You can do every task very efficiently if you are having focus, whereas all the tasks that you can do at a time as a multitask with much, much less efficiency. That's what is happening. We are not able to concentrate on anything to get the perfect kind of efficiency. So first upasana should be there to develop the focus. Once you develop the focus, then the spiritual progress will become easy, because whatever the concept that has been taught by the scientists on the spiritual approach, those concepts have to be understood, and then they should get engraved in our mind. For that, enormous amount of focus is required. Otherwise, it doesn't get into the mind at all. Initially, see, every time I am telling you, when you are listening to Gita, you feel as if you have understood that. The moment you come out of Gita class, it's forgotten, evaporated. Then again, when you are attending the Gita class, it will give a different meaning. Then that is also forgotten. Why these things are happening? Because your mind is not totally focused. So, spiritual people who are having a spiritual aspiration, first of all, they should think whether their mind is 100% focused or not. For that, they have to cultivate the habit of meditation. Then slowly, automatically, spiritual progress will come. Sanjay, if I may say, I'm not expecting much questions, mainly because, what happens is, if it is a scriptural study, anybody can ask questions because they study and then remember and then ask questions. Whereas in meditation, you have to practically do meditation and then only you can ask questions. So that becomes a practical difficulty. Anyway, any questions I am prepared to answer. For a person who is giving time, there are no questions. Sanjay, I tell you one thing. Every day we are taking same chapati in our home, very lovably given by our wife. But we are not satisfied. The same chapati is being made as a roll, then katti roll, and then machi roll or multi roll, some kind of a name they give it in the restaurant with all bad oil and bad stuff. We enjoy it like anything. So nowadays what happens is, sadhana chatushtayam, if you say it is a very traditional kind of a thing from Vedanta, people are not interested. What is this chatushtayam and all, we don't understand. Whereas If you use a word called the inner engineering or kind of a multitasking engineering and something kind of a name, if you put it, it's very attractive. But the approach and the purpose, they are the same. If you take the inner engineering course, I don't know whether you have attended or not, if you really go into the course, I have read the inner engineering book written by Guru. Yeah, I have read the complete book, a remarkable book, very nicely is written, and he is a great man. What is happening is, in the inner engineering, whatever he is suggested is nothing but sadhana chatushtayam. That he has done it with a lot of modern examples. But when it comes to following, whatever the difficulty that you had in following sadhana chatushtayam, the same thing will happen in inner engineering also. That's all. Because the mind never allows you to get corrected, never allows you so easily. Yeah. I am so lucky that yeah. Namaste. Thanks so much. Thanks to you and the entire audience. Thank you so much.